Today, Thursday, June the 5th, and I'm going to just pick up on the topic from the last episode where I left off just talking about debt. And as a Christian entrepreneur, I have a kind of a biblical worldview that I use to help me navigate these sorts of things. And the basic premise where I kind of left off yesterday was that when it comes to debt, whether you're the government, whether you're a business owner, whether you're an individual, you cannot serve two masters. You can't serve your creditor and then serve your own interests. And so I thought in the next couple of minutes I would break that apart a bit and share with you how I think about it. Because as I think about the changes that I'm making in my life with the business in the U.S., starting a business in the U.S., looking to stabilize and grow what I have here in Canada, and then ultimately spend some time overseas working on kind of a life project. You know, the topic of debt is a real one, and it's very near and dear to my heart because I have spent most of my life buried in it. And so these are some of the takeaways that I have, and I find that the Bible has always provided me with just kind of a really great framework for thinking about it. You don't have to be particularly religious to understand the next couple of minutes, but it might provide you with some insight into how to consider it based on what I have. And so kind of why can't you serve two masters? And the basic principle for me has always been we have skills and experience that allow us to create value. So as business owners, as entrepreneurs, but as business owners, that's our job, is to use people and resources to create value. In the Bible, we see that what that looks like is that you want to be able to serve God, which means serving basically other people, or you're going to be serving someone else. So serving creditors, which doesn't really provide you any freedom. So in the Bible, we see this idea that if you serve God, you've got freedom. If you serve others from a creditor position, then you've got no freedom. And so if you're not too spiritual or too religious, then you can just think about it kind of in everyday life in two ways. One, there's two kinds of debts. There's one type, which is a tool or a resource that is used to create more value. So think of your business, you've got accounts receivable, money owed to you, you've got accounts payable, money that has to go out, and there's a little difference between those two numbers. And so if you had a line of credit that was a percentage of that difference, then that's borrowing that you're using as a tool or as a resource to help you create more value, because it's money that's going to help you float your business. It's going to help you pay your payroll. But the truth is, it's money that's already in your business. You just don't have your hands on it. So that's the first type of debt, where it's a tool or a resource and it helps you create more value. But then there's a second kind of debt, which is a constraint that consumes value. So think of borrowing money to purchase a television. It's a pretty simple example. There's no inherent value coming out of the television other than, you get an experience or you get like an emotional high from it. But once that's done, there's nothing else that comes from it. It's not like a tool or a resource that you're using, like maybe a line of credit to help you buy equipment or help you float your payroll or what have you. So borrowing debt is either a tool or a resource, or it's a constraint. And so constraints prevent us from, as business owners, living in freedom like we're meant to be. And debt is arguably self-imposed, so we get to determine the kind of debt that we agree to take. And so it's either helping you do something or it's constraining you from doing something. You're either living in freedom or you're living without freedom. And the Bible, in Proverbs, it talks about working as hard as you can to pay off debt associated with guaranteeing someone else's loan. But there's like this principle that you don't want to be under the thumb of anybody else biblically, except God. But if you're not religious, you just don't want to be under the thumb of anyone. I mean, the reason we become business owners is to enjoy, hopefully, a measure of freedom. But debt can be like a real thumb on the scale. And so the point is, we don't need to live in constraints in our business. And I think lots of business owners, myself included, make the mistake of thinking that cash in the bank is profit that can be spent. But that's not actually true. A lot of times, business owners just aren't familiar enough with the money coming in and the money going out and how much is actually in between those 2 points. I think a prudent business owner, something that I've tried to be in the last couple of years in particular, is able to build and steward a cash flowing business. And a cash flowing business is a business that's able to pay its bills on time. As an owner, you're able to take a draw or a management fee from the business without drawing down on your line of credit. And that's what a prudent business owner does. I think when a business owner has freedom, they're able to lead their company without any kind of constraints, meaning if you've got debt, oftentimes that means if you get the wrong kind of debt, oftentimes that means you're not able to hire, not able to purchase equipment or other assets. Ultimately, the bottom line is you're not able to create any value as a business owner. Because if you've borrowed money to buy a boat, or you've borrowed money to buy a house, or you've borrowed money that isn't creating any value in your business, then you have constrained what you're able to do. And of course, everyone says, but we need to borrow. Maybe you're probably correct, but you have to ask yourself, am I borrowing money to create some value, or am I borrowing money that's going to place constraints on the business? And the same is true for governments. I mean, governments generally borrow to pay their bills instead of just using tax revenue to pay bills. So the governments can't serve two masters any better than any of us can. As a Christian, I'm often challenged to live within my means, and that's not to be pious or religious, but that's basically, I just want to live in freedom. I've spent decades buried in debt and know firsthand the constraints that it's placed on me, my family, our goals, our aspirations, all the things that we've wanted to do. And even though I believe God's used all those constraints to keep me focused and ultimately to get me to where I am today, however, I'm very familiar with the lack of freedom that has come as a result of that debt that I took on, which wasn't creating any value. It was really being used to be consumed without anything being produced on the other side of it. And so I think as a business owner, we need to be in a position to leverage our skills and experience to create value, which means we have to be smart enough to know when we're using debt as a tool and not as a constraint. And as a business owner, you may never really have thought about that before. You might say to yourself, well, I'm going to forego growth, or I'm going to lose out on opportunities. And so then that's just a decision you have to make. Borrowing money means taking a future result into the current day. And so if you're going to take a future result into today, then the simple math would be that that future result has to be better than what it would have been had you not borrowed. So said a different way, if you're going to borrow $10,000 from the future and you're going to bring it into today, the idea is that you should be able to use that $10,000 to make a $20,000 opportunity in the future. Otherwise, don't do it. Just let the $10,000 opportunity happen on its own. But again, I think business owners generally don't think like that. They misinterpret busyness to mean profitability, or they misinterpret cash in the bank to mean I'm profitable, but they don't understand really the burden that they might have placed on their business, which when you think about it, because I believe leadership is a top-down exercise, you really place that burden on all of your staff as well, because the reason people come to work for you, not somebody else, is because you represent maybe their best opportunity. But if you can't steward your business well, and ultimately your business doesn't succeed, or it drowns in debt, or it's never really able to get to fruition because the constraints that debt has placed on your business means you're missing out on opportunities, then arguably all those people that work for you are missing out on opportunities as well. And I think as business leaders, if we're trying to create value, we certainly do that through products and services, but ultimately we create value by helping to make people more valuable. It means investing in people. It means understanding how their highest and best use can be used inside of a business to produce a better result than had they not been there doing that work. And so if you have borrowed money and it's constraining your business, you are, in my opinion, limiting everybody that works for you and what they're able to do with their own life. And I've always thought, if someone's working under my leadership, I hope that they leave my presence or they leave my care in a better position than they were before they got to it. So I always am excited when people move on and leave to new opportunities, because that means they've either outgrown us and me, or they simply have found something different that I can't offer them. And I believe that as a business owner, that is not only rewarding, but that is actually how value is created. You create valuable people who in turn will create valuable products and services, or will manage and run the products and services that your business offers. And if you've got a bunch of debt sitting on top of that business that was used for purposes that don't create value, then I think you're in a tough spot. And you've got to figure out a way to convert that equation. Yeah, maybe that's cutting costs. Maybe that's freeing up cash flow. Maybe that's making some really tough decisions for a short period of time so that over the long haul, you can be sustainable and healthy and stable. But this also, to me, applies to the government. When I look at the Canadian government or the US government, they're all wrestling with the same concept right now, borrowing enormous amounts of money to fund their causes. And they're doing that in advance of having the tax revenue to do it. And all that math seems to be out of joint right now. Those problems are much bigger than me. I can't do anything about them, but what I can do is I can manage my business really well and steward our cash flow properly so that when we come across the need to borrow cash, we're doing it to create some more value for the marketplace. We're not doing it to try and constrain ourselves and force ourselves into a very difficult position. I hope some of those thoughts about debt as a pickup from where I left off yesterday are helpful to you. But hopefully you leave this little episode thinking about, is the debt that I have a tool and a resource, or is it a constraint on my business? And what do I need to do to change that so that I'm able to live in freedom, not live without it because I'm trying to serve two masters. I'm trying to serve our creditors, which comes at the cost of being able to serve my staff, my team, and our business.